Thank you, Ian. Just on a lighter note, Greg, I've had a really tough day because it's been interesting watching Coles over the last month or two. But I had a really tough day at the office a couple of weeks ago, and I've got a little 4-year-old and he can't wait to see me when I get home. And I was crawling up the stairs to get home, he's sitting on the top of the stairs, and I think I'd spent 2 hours on Coles Business with pricing. And he says, "Hi, Daddy, down, down, prices are down." I wasn't very happy. Okay, I want to talk to you today about a national perspective of the fresh produce industry, a little bit of a journey on my business and what we do, who drives demand, the market forces around that, and managing demand. So I put together this little bit of a slide, the approximate numbers that we've worked to. Effectively what we've got here is we've got a production down the bottom. There's roughly 15 to 17,000 production businesses. We're talking fruit and vegetables, to approximately 6,000 retail outlets and food service. And we talk about our wholesale sector, and there's about 400 whole sectors Australia-wide, representing around $8 billion worth of fruit and vegetables, serving around 21 million consumers in Australia. This is where we've seen the biggest change in our industry in the last 10 years in this sector, and that is in the wholesale sector. It's really focused on the middle, where that fruit loop is. It's what we like to call the narrow neck. But effectively, with the slide that I just previously put up, you can see that the 80-20 rule applies to a lot of our business. Seed companies, there's 3 seed companies that total 65% of the business. There's 4 crop protection companies totaling 70% of the business, 1 fertiliser company with 50% of the business. We see 3,000 main fruit and vegetable producers, but there's only about 1,000 of them that are actually large producers. Out of the 400 wholesalers, there's about 80 of those wholesalers that would do 80% of the business. That's the biggest change that we've seen drive over the last decade, that we've seen integration of both horizontal and vertical integration. I'll take you on a small journey of that in a moment with our business. Again, in retail, there's 1,000 bigger retail outlets, 10 retail chains in food service, still serving the same. And you can see in our industry, and that loop you saw go through the middle in a figure 8, that is what we like to call the narrow neck, but that's effectively where we're learning what we need to produce and educating what the customers need. So it's a really nice position for us to educate ourselves in, and it's really nice to be able to work with our retail clients and with our farms, with our own farms, along with other farms, to be able to feed the narrow neck. But everything goes through that. Well, not everything, because there's a fair percentage of growers around Australia that will serve direct to a supermarket without going through a central market at all. Our business likes to do both. So I'll talk a little bit about our business. We talk about the market segments and what we manage on a day-to-day. We manage a wholesale market, and for those of you that haven't seen one, I'll show you some slides in a moment. But we're managing wholesale market segments from our farm through to our wholesale market segments, as well as from other farms as a wholesaler through to those market floors. We separately manage independent, or David referred to it before, with the fresh markets. A lot of the fresh markets are all being served out of the wholesale markets. A lot of the farmers' markets are being served out of the wholesale markets, but there's an inquiry into that by the government in any event. We serve the multinationals, and then being able to do that, again, it's different than what we would normally do from our farms through to a market, or how we manage that. Our food service needs are completely different again, and again usually a different product, and then being able to manage a national account at the same time. That's probably the life of a morning, or one of my typical mornings of how I go about where and how and what price. So we talk about understanding the supply chain commodities. I'll drill into those a little bit more, right? But effectively what we're doing here is the first question we've got to ask ourselves is how we manage the product and its production and the highs and lows. So we go through a full planning session on our farms and we talk about what are the varieties that we're going to grow, and I'll dig into that a little deeper further on. We talk about when do we want to plant for our production? Do we want major production early? Do we want it in the middle? Do we want it at the end? Do we want to create highs and lows, or do we want to have a consistent approach to business? So this is just a typical small enterprise going about its day-to-day planning on what it's going, how it's going to deal with its own production, remembering that we're weather dependent. So even whether we're indoors or whether we're outdoors, the weather still affects our products. If we're indoors and we've got no sunlight, it affects our growth. If we're outdoors and we've got rain, it affects our picking. So there's always an issue with the weather. Our harvest stage is another important one. We have distribution centres at several stages throughout the supply chain. But what stage do we harvest at? In my case, as I say, I'll take you through that journey in a moment, but we are growers and sellers of tomatoes and capsicums are our two dominant lines. So you've got to pick them at certain colour stages, and then you've got to manage that through the supply chain. So if Greg is asking me to supply his Melbourne outlet from our North Queensland farm, it's a 5-day trip, or a 4.5-day trip if we're meeting regulation. So therefore we've got to be able to pick at a colour stage that goes through the chain, deliver what he wants to meet the specification into his distribution centre. Separate to that is that we have Kapiris Bros have their own distribution centres across the nation. We have one in Queensland, South Australia, Melbourne and Perth, of which we're filling from our farming destinations and into those distribution centres. And again, it's about managing the commodity. So sales just don't happen. Well, sometimes they do, right? But usually we've got to manage that to be able to have a consistent supply 52 weeks of the year, 7 days a week is what it's about. Greg talks about dealing with less suppliers of more consistent quality. Certainly that's where we're positioning our business in the future. Above all of that, we also value add, right? So that's talking about serving an Aldi, because Aldi will only take a pre-pack in most of its line, right? Coles will do a 6-pack tomato, for example, but as well they'll do a 1 kilo tomato. There's a lot of value adding. In our capsicums we do a tricolour, or we'll run a promotion on a 4-pack. All those things take time planning, but right from the moment you actually plant it to when we actually pick it. Above all of that, we're also managing the food miles, and it's fair pressure that's been brought on by a lot of our corporates. But as I say, managing food miles also comes down to smart logistics and having the ability to actually take a few dollars, add a few dollars to the bottom line. So there's a bit of a plus in managing food miles as well. The example there is a North Queensland farm in Bowen. This is our only outdoor farm. It's 350 acres of trellis-grown product. It produces 900,000 boxes in the season just gone, in production from June to October. So it's 16 weeks, or 16 to 18 weeks. You'll find those at Coles and Safeway, Hungry Jack's if you're eating fast food, Subway, and a few of the farmers markets and what have you as well. This is a typical outdoor tomato farm, probably a little larger than you'd see in most areas. You can see that we're planting around 7,500 plants an acre, and our stakes, just so that you get a bit of an idea there, our stakes run at about 1.8 to 2 metres high. We have one every 2 metres across 350 acres that are put in the ground manually and taken out manually. There's 4 wires that run in between that to train the plant to the top, which is enough wire to go from Bowen to Melbourne and back every time we crop. The example there is in South Australia. It's in production as we speak, and it's a classic case of value adding, and we've gone undercover. What you can see over there, I think this does have a pointer, doesn't it? Yeah. So we've got some outdoor crops, which is what you see here. Typically that's what we had the whole farm under. There's 360 acres here. What we've done is we've moved to protected cropping. This is NEARMAP, which is January 23. We just put this up this year. There's about 80 acres there. There's about another 20 there, and we're just installing another house there, as you can see, which in fact is finished as we speak. The plan for next year is all of this will go under crop, and all of this will go under as well. Why are we doing that? It's a bit like what Coles were talking to us about, what Greg was talking about before. It's about being able to deliver large volumes of consistent product, but it's very hard to get sustainable prices.